I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. Glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. I've got a great show today. Glad to be joined by our books editor, W.D. Foster Graham. We look at and talk about books pretty much every Thursday. Love to have your suggestions or ideas on books we can talk about. If you are a writer or an author, we'd love to have you connect with us to do a review of your work as well. And also later in the show, we'll have a conversation with my colleague, Antonio Rosell. I think we're going to be joined by my colleague, Yogi Senna from Brazil as well. That conversation looking at the campus protests around the country and around the world. What's happening with the student protest movement, updates on New York and UCLA, also the Palestinian protest at the University of Minnesota, who've agreed to end the encampment there, and a House bill over complaints from First Amendment advocates, under the banner of anti-Semitism. A lot to discuss, a lot to uncover. Before we begin, we want to invite you to support this program and join the program by becoming a subscriber. Go to our YouTube Insight News MN channel and simply hit the subscribe button, like and share. We've crossed the 1,000 subscriber threshold. We're looking at getting 2,000 now, but that can only happen if you help us. And the way you can help us is by becoming a subscriber. Also by letting your friends know that we're going live every day with the Conversation with Al McFarlane. And why is it important? I think that we've got a unique mix, a unique approach to combining stories, narratives that reflect aspirations, reflect disappointments, challenges, anger, and prowess. We're looking at the world, but looking at it through an authentic lens that we can say is ours, that doesn't depend on somebody outside of us to approve or disapprove of our point of view, our thinking, our thoughts. We're here of our own volition and standing in and on the legacy of our ancestors, those who preceded us. And we are committed to the notion of the liberation of our people. What do you mean, our people? Well, I'm a Black man. I'm an African. I'm a New World African. I'm committed to the liberation of Africans in the New World and Africans throughout the diaspora. But what do you mean, Al? Well, I think that at the end of the day, all human beings come from the same place. And from my point of view, the planet is inhabited by Africans. So liberation for me is to create freedom for every human being. Liberation for all people on the planet. But it starts from the skin that I'm in. I am an African in the New World. Well, with that, let us begin. And I want to bring in W.D. Foster. Brother W.D., how you doing, man?
Hey, Al, it's great to be back one more time. Just had a wonderful vacation.
Oh, how was vacation? Where'd you go?
Oh, I went to Puerto Rico.
Oh, boy.
It it was beautiful. The resort we had, the beaches were fantastic. Got to see Old San Juan, learned so much history. It was wonderful because the fact is, the last time I was there was 40 years ago.
When
So
were you there before? I'm interested.
1984.
84. Okay. All right. Vacationing then as well.
Yeah, my brother and I went there for a vacation, a winter
Okay.
vacation.
Okay.
Now I
Uh,
understand why people take winter vacations.
yeah. Right. Yeah. And they're cool. Well, I tell a San Juan story when I was in the military. I was in the Navy, and so I was in San Juan, Old San Juan, Luna Street. I don't know if Luna Street is still there. Did you come across Luna Street in Old San Juan?
In Old San Juan, it's still there.
Okay. And so I was probably an 18 or 19-year-old soldier, or sailor, when I was in San Juan. And what I discovered, WD, I had this picture of all Spanish-speaking people as pretty much white people and not so much as Black, even though my family is Cuban and Black, right?
Mhm.
But the popular image and perception of Spanish speakers is not Black. And even if they are a little mixed, they tend to identify white more than Black. And so when I got into San Juan, I looked around everybody I saw was black, looked just like me.
Mm-hmm.
Moses, where these brothers come from, right? And so the next day, I think I went back and I took my civilian clothes and put them in a duffel bag, and then came on to what we call the beach, the town, found a bus station locker room, put my military clothes in the locker, and kept on civilian clothes. Then I went out and hung out on the corner, right,
Mm-hmm.
where the rest of the brothers were, and I discovered as long as I keep my mouth shut
Mm-hmm.
and just relax, don't be stiff like Americans are. Be just relax, chill, that nobody would know me from any other black man sitting on the corner on Luna Street in San Juan. And the test was even some shore patrol came up looking, just looking their routine stuff. And I answered in Spanish, I don't speak English. What you talking about, Willis? I didn't say it that, but that was the idea. So that's my Puerto Rico story. The message in the story is that I had to get past my limited perception of identity that created the chasm between me and Puerto Ricans, and discover that Puerto Ricans and I have the same root in Africanity. So that's the story. Well, listen, let's bring our guest in today. We've got a wonderful guest, a dear friend, a leader in the community. Let me introduce her first. Terryann Nash is an accomplished human rights educator and an international author of a book. The book is Striving to See World Change. James Meredith, Nash Inspired and the Epicenter. So Terryann holds a master's degree in advocacy and political leadership, a Bachelor of Arts degree in human rights, adult training and development with a focus on in American Sign Language Studies. She has an associate's degree in ITP Sign Language certification and is currently pursuing a PhD in human development at Fielding Graduate University. She's the CEO and owner of Nash Inspired, a company she created in 2017. And her diversity project, her PhD project is called Diversity Alive. And it's about educational theater programs. So she's dedicated, she says, to the mission of elevating people and ushering them into their full potential. Terryann Nash, dear sister, good to see you. How are you doing? Welcome.
Thank you. I'm great. Great to be here.
Great. Well, great to have you here. Tell us about your work. Tell us, your writing work and your work in general.
Thank you. Well, actually, I'm really excited to say that I'm actually living the dream. So not only did I get an opportunity to write this book for my socio-ecological justice class at Fielding as part of my PhD work, but I'm actually out at Hopkins High School working as an ASL, American Sign Language teacher. And so the book has been adopted by the district out here for our curriculum this year in American Sign Language. And so I'm able to share this work with not only the students of Hopkins High School, but also the fact that I get to co-teach with one of the authors in the book, Rebecca Demings. And we are demonstrating that the deaf and the hearing can work together side by side and affect global change.
Awesome. And so go further, say more about that.
So a little bit about that is our curriculum is a little different because we actually teach from the same perspective that the deaf community uses in teaching their own children in language acquisition. And so we teach from the culture first because we really believe that if you get a grasp on the culture and you understand and respect the culture, no matter where you're at with your language communication skills, the sign language itself, you'll be able to the deaf community's culture is they can meet you where you're at, and then you'll have a true, authentic experience. So for us, being that I also have an extensive background in coaching and job coaching and development, I'm preparing our students for the world and to be able to go out there and have something that's marketable and that they can feel good about. So in their final projects, as I was sharing earlier with WD, we have students in here who are working on fundraisers for African deaf schools. They are interpreting music. We have a student who was inspired just today by this opportunity. They're watching as part of their curriculum. And one student is been inspired by this opportunity that they want to do a podcast for the deaf community.
Great.
So they may do one episode as their final. And we have students who are illustrating books, clay work. Everything that we're doing here is basically to show that the deaf community and deaf culture is not monolithic. It is not just one culture that everybody does is the same as a cookie cutter, but that anything that we as hearing people participate in, the deaf community wants to be there too.
That's awesome. Are there students nearby or in the same room with you or in studio with you, or do you want to introduce some, or how do you want to do it? If
well, I do have a few.
Okay.
I don't know. By a show of hands, is there anyone in here who would want to come on camera and maybe introduce yourself with just your name? I got two students that said they'd be interested to say hi.
Maybe they can pull up a chair next to you and we can have a conversation with them and you can lead the conversation.
Sure. We said put up a chair, so let's see. John, I think I can squeeze you back here, or Haley, you can squeeze you back here, and then John, you pull up a chair. So as a teacher, you see I have a multifunctional area. A little bit about my curriculum as well is that we're a Montessori. Okay, so one of you can take that chair. Yep. Haley, why don't you take that chair? Why don't you pull up a chair? Get one of those. No, see the little stool deals? Grab one of those. And so with our curriculum, it's Montessori based. So part of it is I use the Maslow hierarchy to empower the students. And one of the things we believe is that we start out with, you can't learn if you're hungry. So I've partnered with New Creations Baptist Church, Pastor Daniel McKizzy, who brings in, hey, and there's Lashiria. She is our interpreter and one of the authors from the book. Okay. So just to let you know a little bit about what we do, I'll make it fast and neat, but we start out with the Maslow. So we go with the basic needs. We have snacks in here. Pastor Daniel McKizzy has kept us going all year with popcorn and beef sticks and cheese sticks and dried cherries and nuts. So we start out there. The students also, every day we greet each student individually so that we have an opportunity to say hi and they get to check in. They get to order their snack, whatever we have available for that day. We have a menu when they come in. And then part of our curriculum is basically getting to work with the deaf instructor as well as the hearing instructor. Because I am an interpreter, I'm able to be the voice for our deaf instructor, but our students get the opportunity to have interface authentically. They get to understand the culture firsthand. And I believe that we are offering the integrity of representation for the deaf community. So I want to just let them at least say their names and sign. How would you introduce yourself if you were in the community? Nope. And this is no voice.
Hi, my name is John, John. Last name is Atha, Atta. No, is that right? My last name is Jonathan is my first name. Last name is A-T.
Go again.
No.
Go ahead. Start again.
I'm sorry. My name is
C-A-C-I-U-R-A. And that's his last name.
That's his last name.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
And my name is HSI.
Okay.
Hold on. I'm going to start again. Hailey, Haley. And the last name is Pisarski.
So remember,
Good to meet
you. You're in Minnesota. So you're going to see our Minnesota last names.
That's cool. And so the class is a high school class or a college class, or what is it?
This is a high school class, and this is ASL 1.
Mm-hmm.
So John would like to do something else. Go
Yeah,
ahead, John.
sure, please.
Sorry.
My birthday.
Okay, you said day. What else?
Day.
Finger spell. You got to finish. When is it? When?
May 2nd. Today.
Happy birthday.
Yes, that's why he's here.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. You're welcome. He said thank you.
Tell
And
him.
then just a little bit, Haley has been performing. She did the Black History Month production with Gary Hines, and she learned how to sign woke. The song woke.
Let's hear some of it. Let's see some of it.
Well, you can do one sign. What do you remember from woke? Did you catch that, Lasheria?
She says all God
Yep, keep going. Children
are woke.
Beautiful.
Yes. Beautiful.
Nice job. Okay, yeah. And so she's also going to be performing in our last talent show, and we are actually teamed up with a lady from Nashville, Tennessee, named Shay Nicole, who is right now on the top of the Apple music chart. And she's letting us interpret her music to give something for the deaf community.
That's fabulous. So, I'm so glad to have this conversation with you guys. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Terryann Nash, for what you do in this area. And in the spirit of my opening remarks, freedom and liberation has to be liberation for every human being. And it seems to me that what you're doing is liberation work, because you are both demanding and insisting and enabling that all of us acknowledge and see each other fully, right? Without any side eye. And so I think that's great. But you talk about that. What does it mean for you as a teacher, an educator, a writer, to help these young people develop into becoming their full self?
Well, the wonderful thing about it, Al, is I really believe, as I've searched, unless I can find someone to correct me by this podcast, we are the only ones. Hopkins High School is the only school in the nation right now offering this model. As part of my PhD work, it has been phenomenal to watch the development of the young people as they have become not only just acclimated to the language, but the reason I'm using Maslow is because the top of the Maslow pyramid is self-actualization. So if I could take my computer just one moment, I'm going to show you. This is what our classroom looks like.
Okay.
So you can see all those hands. Everybody is represented in our classroom. They were able to take their own hand and make the gesture, either I love you or whatever they wanted to do. And then they also created their own flag that represents their values and their heart and who they are. So as the students sit in the room, they can look up, and see themselves. And every day I talk to them about what they're able to do with this newfound skill and how they can apply it to everyday life. And then with our other teacher, Rebecca Demings, she's not here today, but she also talks to them about always be ready. What if you meet a deaf person out in the community? How do you approach that person? Are you ready to approach that person? And what is the best ways based on your skill level? So all of our students, when they're done with our class, they have over 100 words just in ASL 1, as well as a full introduction. So they can say their full name, their birthday, where they live, their pronoun, their favorite food, their favorite car, their favorite sport or leisure activity that they like. So when you can say that much, or you can communicate that much, that opens up a lot for a conversation. You can talk about cars now that you can at least say what your favorite car is. You might be able to talk about food, but at least they'll have the general gist of being able to go out into the community. Now, with their final projects, they're also getting to do a showcase where we'll invite the community to come out on June 3rd to Hopkins High School and see. So I've got the small theater reserved because the students who are doing music videos, this gives them an opportunity to see their video on the big screen. And so what I really want to instill in my students and the students that Rebecca and I work with is that because they are high school students, this is just a mere wrinkle in time that they get to savor, but to know that they can take all of these things that they have and that they're developing here, and that they have two teachers that will go out into the world with them because one, they're developing a portfolio. So they have a running timeline, or what I call time capsule. We have a video when they first started, and they make intermittent videos. They also get to grade themselves, so they create their own rubric. One of the products that I've created working, me and Rebecca, is this is what all of the students get when they start. We use children's hands to teach the alphabet, because if you see the hands of a 3-year-old, they're the most non-intimidating hands, which means everybody can do this. So as a finalist product or project, we have a student who's actually going to go back through and re-illustrate objects and shapes that go with the letters. So we'll have letter, and then we'll have like maybe A for apples. She's going to draw apples. Another piece that I've also done to start introducing my PhD work as I go out is I had once heard someone say there's nothing sexy about disabilities. And that kind of rubbed me wrong, because I feel like this, we're aging every day. And just because I'm aging doesn't mean I don't get to be sexy.
Great.
Hey.
If I wake up tomorrow and I'm not as able-bodied as I am now, I hope that doesn't mean I don't get to be sexy. So what I did is I created a newsletter. And this is my first newsletter. And this newsletter was inspired. I had been saying I was going to do it. And I've been meaning to do it since August. But then I got this wonderful review from a man named W.D. Foster Graham. And because I had such a wonderful review, I thought I couldn't waste the opportunity. So it's the centerpiece of my April debut newsletter. And my newsletter, just to let you know, so my geeky side, my PhD, sexy equals ASL means sustainability, ecologically, xenodocial, you. That equals learning American Sign Language. And xenodocial means just being open-minded to new things and new ideas. So if we could be more, so by learning American Sign Language, ecologically, it would create a more sustainable community, because we now, as what I believe, it's not just that we want to sit at the table, but it's time to start eating at that table. I'm ready to sit at the table, and the deaf people are ready to eat at the table. So to be able to do that, we need to be able to make sure that the menus are right, and that the people who are taking the orders understand the language, and that we all have an opportunity. I mean, if the cure for cancer is in the deaf community, and right now we have one interpreter to 50 deaf people, we have a problem.
There we go. And so that leads me, Terry, to ask you, what would it be like if part of our growing up everywhere on the planet meant that one of the skills we learn, one of the language skills we learn, is sign language? And it's not impossible. We are all potentially polyglot, right? Able to speak and use several languages. It's a question of exposure and training. So as an educator, do you have a vision or a dream or an idea that things could be substantially different on the planet if everyone had the opportunity from the beginning, not only to learn verbal, but also sign language as part of their capabilities as a human being? What do you think about that?
Well, Al, you are actually, you hit the nail on the head. So here's the deal. I'm going to sum it up right here with what you're seeing visually. First of all, I have no real recollection firsthand, but I know it happened. On 34th and 4th Avenue, In a time, once upon a time, I played with a little deaf girl when I was 4 years old. Little would I know that over 30 years later, her and I would be teaching side by side in a high school. Little did I know that during COVID, when I had an idea to invent a mask with a clear face and put it on Facebook, that I would meet a woman named Lashiria, who is the niece of a deaf woman who reached out to me because she needed a mask.
Hey.
But the biggest piece is without people such as yourself, Mr. McFarlane, we would not be able to even get the word out, because this technology, these platforms that you're creating are allowing 400, nope, 4 million. There are 4 million people in America who use American Sign Language, whether it's their first language or their second language. And then I need to throw out the last piece. When I was interviewed by you at A. Philip Randolph's
Mm-hmm.
conference a few years ago,
Yep.
that is what really sparked me to finish the master's program in my political leadership and advocacy, and then move on to my PhD, because the next thing is we need to get a voice unified for the deaf community, and they need to be unionized. So you have been a cornerstone to the foundation of me being a Minnesota girl next door, and just a product of the community. So if I didn't have people like you to trailblaze, I wouldn't know that I could make this difference. And so you're seeing the product of what it takes, and it's not that hard. It's just exposure.
Yeah.
All of these students are going to leave here, and maybe they become a CEO. One of them may become, I've got a plumber in here. I've got a
Mm-hmm.
plumber in here, might hire some deaf people because they're good plumbers.
Uh-huh.
So my point is that there's opportunity on so many levels just within our student body, within Hopkins District, that could spill out internationally if we could have more people to just adopt this model. So you've got Fridley, who had to fly in teachers internationally, when we have deaf people who are qualified right here in our Twin Cities area who are looking for jobs.
WD
So
jump
that's
in.
how we do it.
Indeed. Well, I noticed that James Meredith played a role in this project. So could you elaborate on that? Because that was definitely intriguing, because given James Meredith's history as a civil rights leader, would you share?
Yes. So I have been exposed. I was groomed to work with James Meredith since the age of 5. I never heard anything else other than because my grandfather is from Mississippi, Kosciuszko, Mississippi, and we are related. But Dr. Meredith inspired me because, one, he was the first person that I knew the power of one. So it was way before Obama that we knew the power of one. To know that he broke the back of the last link to white supremacy in America, which was the PhD. A lot of people don't understand what that means, but the significance is a Black man out of Mississippi, which we know historically what Mississippi means, and then to be able to get to that level that all Americans now can go to any college of their choice. I knew that the deaf community needed to hear that message to be empowered. How did it transcend? Well, not only did we get to go to Mississippi and all of the people in our book met him, even if it was via Zoom, they all got to meet him and to see the changes in their lives. One, we have a teacher now. Two, we have Dwayne Johnson of Deaf Ride, who is now taken on the management job at Kroger's in the pharmaceutical area. Dennis has 2 jobs now when he had a part-time job before this. We've got 2 people in the book who've gotten married. Musa has over 30,000 followers now. And the really huge thing for me is part of my PhD team. I have a man by the name of Audrey Hervey, who also is a descendant of a Nash. We can't figure out our lineage yet, but he's also from Kosciuszko, and he's on my dissertation team. So one of the things that we talked about today was that we are so proud that we could say we have Mississippi roots. And here we are now, the benefactors of Dr. Meredith's work, because we are the PhD to break the back of white supremacy, a place that they did not want us to be, especially me as a Black woman. And here we are going to represent 7% of our population. And James Meredith empowered that work. And he's empowered this community. And I really believe that if we have more leadership and people know more about what our struggles are and what the journey is about, we'll have more of our students, we'll have more young people moving forward and just ready to continue the journey. I have students in here right now learning the poem, What is a Dream Deferred? And being able to tell them about the United Negro College Fund and those old commercials I grew up with. You know, that's exciting. So when I get to tell them, you know, the dream deferred was when we knew we couldn't do it, we just, the best hope we had was our next generation would do it, and our next generation, and we're still there.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to inspire some doctors out of here.
Speaking of the book,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Tell us a little about your book,
yeah,
and also how our readers can get it.
Thank you. So, Striving to See World Change. James Meredith, Nash Inspired in the Epicenter. I am Nash Inspired. The epicenter is Minnesota because this was written just during the time of George Floyd and what all had happened after George Floyd, and everybody looking at us. So what could possibly come out of Minnesota? The authors of this book are people who have inspired me. There's 12. As you see, LaShiria, she is a woman, very few, hands up interpreting service, Black owned, one of the few. And she's doing it out here over 3 states. So I just basically wrote this book to empower 12 people that I met who were phenomenal, that needed to be out there. And as I tell my son all the time, we're just one person away from an opportunity. Our interconnectedness is so essential to our sustainability as a race of people, not a race of color, but as human beings, that if we can't figure out how to continue to celebrate each other and to lift each other up, then we won't have a lot of other places to go. And that's what this book does. So I thought that I was going to write about all these wonderful people that I inspired, because I took the parable of the talents and invested in 12 people over a year. But what I found was, in our interconnectedness, as I inspired them, they inspired me. And that's what the book is all about.
Where can you get the book, Terryann?
Right now, this book is on Amazon, so you can get it through Amazon.com. And you can also go to my website, which is www.nashinspired.com. And you'll find the book there as well.
Well, this is so great. Hang out as long as you can. We're going to switch to our next segment, but let me say 2 things before you leave. I'm so impressed with you and with the work that you're doing, and I thank you so much for what you're doing. I applaud you. You know, and just as I suggested, what would it be like if we could figure out a way to make it natural and normal for everybody to know sign language as part of the just process of learning to walk, you know, learning to use words and to use signs to communicate. That would just be so cool. So I think when kids do go to preschool or daycare, a lot of times they teach them the sign because they don't have the words yet. So I remember my grandkid being able to sign, you know, different things when he was hungry, whatever. So that teaching is there. It's how do we keep it so it grows with the child? So the second thing, and I'll just drop this out as something for you to look at and think about over time. I have been studying hieroglyphics. And the idea is to go to ancient Africana ways of knowing, to the creation of language itself in the hieroglyphic of the African experience. And just like I'm saying to you, wouldn't it be cool if everybody in our community was able to learn to sign? I think it would be also cool if everybody in our community, the African community, would learn hieroglyphics. And it opens up a whole different world, a whole different way of viewing how the world is made and how it works and what that connectivity is that you've talked about, right? And it connects in a way that you don't see yourself at the margin of humanity and of reality, but you see yourself at the center. And at the center, you become and reveal your best self as a human being. And there are stories and languages and symbols and signs and hieroglyphics that enable us to configure a cosmology, an understanding of the complete universe that can put us in harmony with other human beings, other living things, and the mineral world as well. Well, I'm going to stop there because I'll be out of my comfort zone in a second because I'm still learning. But wouldn't it be cool if we all could learn both hieroglyphics and signing? What do you think?
I think it'd be very cool because you're basically sign language is a visual language. It's all visual. So connecting the visual and the higher, how do I say it? The higher understanding, the cultural awareness, and being able to make the connections as well as the comparisons. I believe that would also give the students or even whoever that student is an opportunity to, how do I say it? Anytime you're introducing new information, it brings that opportunity to go higher. So it opens up new doors and you never know how that can inspire. I just wanted to say also, I just saw that Abu Bakr is also online. Abu Bakr is from Nigeria, and he was one of the Nelson Mandela Fellows that came to the United States. I got to be his personal interpreter. And although he is aspiring to come back to the University of Minnesota, as we are looking at this the DEI issues that we're having with diversity, inclusion, and equity, diversity, equity, inclusion, these policies are changing. And so they're changing for our international students to have opportunities to come to our country. But with that being said, starting in June, Abu Bakr and myself will be teaching international we'll be teaching an international class via Zoom, but we'll be teaching American Sign Language. He's from the deaf community and he's a teacher in Nigeria who uses American Sign Language. So we'll be furthering the work of Dr. Andrew Foster, who started a Black man at Gallaudet, who got his PhD and went to Nigeria to he went to Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya to set up schools for the deaf. And he died in a plane crash in 1986, but we're going to continue on in the vision to continue to teach sign language abroad. And so I'll be working on the internet, via internet with Abu Bakr to teach classes. So that'll be another thing you can find on our website, more information.
And we're going to have you back again and again and again. This is just the beginning. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Conversation with Al McFarlane. Let me pivot now to bring in my colleague, Antonio Rosell. And Antonio, we've been trying to get to our conversation to talk about what's happening with the protests on campuses here and around the country. Give us an update.
Well, Al, thank you very much for the invitation to have this opportunity today to chat with our viewers about the encampment and the overall movement that's going on across the United States and across other nations in the world as well, where students are asking their universities to rethink their investments, because there's a lot of investments that universities do through their mutual funds, where they are placing those funds in weapons manufacturers and sometimes in companies that are based in Israel and are manufacture the weapons that are being used to kill innocent civilians in Gaza and elsewhere in Palestine and the Middle East. And so students with a huge moral clarity have put themselves on the line and have set up encampments like at the University of Minnesota, and have said to the university, we are going to remain here every day through cold or rain or any inhospitable condition. We don't care. We're going to stay here in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Gaza, in Palestine, who are suffering every day and who are getting killed by these weapons that our university is investing in. And so it's a call for moral clarity and for divestment. And it has a lot of parallels as well with other actions that were taking, during the Vietnam War and during the fight against apartheid. And that's one of the, this is in the 1990s, 80s and 90s, where awareness grew about the apartheid conditions that existed in South Africa and the unjust treatment of Black Africans, Black South Africans in that apartheid government. And it was students who then also had the clarity and the moral strength and the commitment to make a difference in that and to really begin a movement. So there's a lot of that going on today. I think we have a lot of reasons to be extremely proud of our young people here in Minnesota. I have a little bit of materials that I can share.
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead. Just go.
And maybe if we can show a view of all of the universities in the U.S. that are right now in this campaign of divestment and encampments. Cooper, I wonder if you could show that. More than 120 universities. And you can see the ones that are written in black are the ones that are inside the United States, campuses of universities here in the United States. The ones in green are universities outside of the physical territory of the United States. And students in all of these universities have been doing tremendous, facing tremendous hardship, not just physical discomfort. Cooper, I wonder if you could show a couple of images of just, the camps through the rain, through the cold. We had, for example, here in the Twin Cities, just a couple of days ago, pretty hard rain last night and the night before, cold temperatures. The students have been camping there through finals week. They've been trying their best to study as they can, but this is a time they see for clarity and for really showing strength of the cause for justice. And so they've been doing this, and today actually, they've met with the administration at the University of Minnesota, and I have to also say one thing too, that it's the students and it's also a whole community of people around the students who have been supporting this movement. There have been people who are no longer students, or maybe were students at the U 20 or 30 years ago, or are not students there at all, who have been calling the university administration, who have been showing up and building a ring of protesters around the encampment to be there and to be available in case the police were going to come and try to forcefully evict them. Now, that has happened in other universities, as I'm sure you've heard, Columbia, UCLA. There's all kinds of really terrible, forceful actions against people. Here you can see an image of kind of that community that has grown up around this space. I wonder, Cooper, if you can show that video of a vice presidential candidate at a student protest getting manhandled by police. This happened just a couple of days ago. The lady in the white hair that's getting pushed by a policeman using a bicycle, that is a presidential candidate in the United States, Jill Stein of the Green Party. Huge abuses. This is in Missouri, in Washington University in St. Louis. And throughout the country, this has been happening at very many places. This was one of the big fears that people around the encampment at the university had today. And I have to say, too, that the involvement that a lot of our community members who were not necessarily camping was key in helping the university see that moving forward in this way is not right. There are students, there are community, we have to take care of them. They are in a way being our conscience about acting in the ways that are consistent with what we say that we are about, right? We're about diversity, equality, human rights. Well, the human rights of the people who are being massacred today in Gaza, we need to keep that in mind and act accordingly, right? So the students have had that moral clarity. The university administration has thankfully been more thoughtful. And I'll say this to their credit, the University of Minnesota administration has been much more thoughtful than some of the other universities we have seen. And that's something I think that, it's a good indication and something that we can be proud of as well, because, it's partly it's them, it's the administrators themselves at the university, and partly is our wider community who has called them and reminded them. These are our students. We love them.
Antonio,
We need to take care of them. Yes, Al, sorry.
Why do you think Berkeley and Columbia have gone in a different direction? Columbia, in particular, I think, had prided itself in trying to ensure that decisions that students take are respected and are supported. But then in the last day, I think the police moved in massively to dismantle the encampments at Columbia University in New York City. And as I watched the news programs last night with the mayor of New York and other state officials speaking, they seem to be creating a narrative that the protests were not the work of the students, but of quote unquote outsiders. And so they wanted to bifurcate and separate and say that, of course, students wouldn't be doing this. Maybe some would, but most wouldn't. So anything that's happening bad here has to be done by agitators from outside. That's a common tactic, I think. And you kind of addressed that to a degree when you said that the students at the University of Minnesota were not there alone. They were there with community, and the community might have been former students or might have been people that never were associated directly with the campus, but are feeling the issue and have been attracted to an opportunity to express solidarity around an injustice that they see in the world. And so how do we as consumers, as community, ensure or help ourselves to not be blinded by the voice of the official instrument of the institution or of the state in a way that sort of minimizes our own gut feeling and our own bid for freedom, democracy, equity, and justice? What do you think?
Well, this talk about outside agitators, as you said, is something that is a very well-known angle and a very well-known approach to try to discredit the fight, the true fight for human rights. I mean, that phrase, if I wasn't alive back then, but I know that it's in this letter from a Birmingham City jail that Dr. Martin Luther King wrote, saying how people try to remove power from the movement, saying that it's the work of outside agitators that are not from the community of Birmingham, right? And the truth is that this movement, and I've been there, I've gone and I've been at the encampment. The students lead it. The students negotiate with the university. It is the students. Now, the encampment was pulled up today because the students, through their initiative and through their demand, were able to secure a meeting with administration. The administration, and they had to meet twice because the initial meeting wasn't, the administration was not maybe as responsive as the students wanted. And they said, no, we are willing to pay the price. And we are going to stay here enjoying the cold and enjoying the rain and having difficulty through our exams because we believe in this cause. And so the students stayed, and then they met with them again, and they had a proposal from the university last night that was now sent out earlier today. And the students said, okay, we agree with this proposal from the university. We agree with it. We're going to pull up the camp the same as we agreed. And you can't tell that anything was there. Now, if you go there, I just saw some photos because I haven't been there today. You can't tell there was an encampment there at all. The students pulled everything up, and it was their action and their leadership. And it's wonderful to know, so they are the ones that are leading it, but the community is coming around to support. And now I'll tell you a little bit too about some of the people who are not connected to the university, who have come. My son, we're chatting about this last night. He doesn't go to the U, he goes to MCTC. And students from MCTC. He's been going to the encampment for the last 3 days. When he's on his way home or on his way there or during the day, and he's gone there and joined because at MCTC they don't have an encampment, but he went and joined because he knows enough about the world, and we talk about these things at home. And he's like, I want to be part of this, and I didn't encourage him to go or anything like that. I think a lot of young people have a moral compass that is less compromised as we get older and older in life, and we tend to say, oh, it's complicated. I got to go to work. I got to do this, and that clarity ends dropping away a little bit, and it's very sad because I think the world would be a better place if all of us as the adult population who have the levers of power, right? If we kept that youthful clarity about moral rights and moral wrongs, and it's something that is innate, I believe, to humanity. If you were to be in observing a group of 5-year-olds, and a fight starts, the first reason why that child's going to tell you that fight started, it's not fair. He did this, he did that. It's not fair. Fairness, justice, we're born with it. It's a value that God gives to all of us, and we can keep that clarity. There's a lot of influences that try to overshadow that and put doubt in our mind about that clarity. But I think that there is a lot for all of us to learn from this student movement, from their leadership, from their discipline, from their commitment. They're there knowing that they could get as beat up as the other people have gotten beat up, and they know for a fact that it was uncomfortable, wet, and cold, and that they had exams and that they could be thrown out of the university as other universities have done. And yet they stayed because they also know what's at stake and what's happening half a world away in Gaza. They see it in the same way that I guess all of us too can see it. This is the first live stream genocide, right? And it's amazing that our political representatives are apparently, if we were to judge by their actions, they're apparently blind to it because they continue to send weapons, they continue to send money, and they continue to facilitate what really is a huge, terrible tragedy, a man-made tragedy, including starvation, destruction of the infrastructure of daily life for millions of people. Gaza has 2.3 million people. Not a single university is left out of the 17 or so that were there. Their hospitals, not a single one of them has been unaffected. And, we of course have heard of all the just horrible massacres of thousands and thousands of innocent civilians, most of them women and children. So
We've got
I don't know.
a person that's been listening and wants to join the program. I hope anyway. Brother Omar says he's from SJP. Omar, welcome to the conversation. I don't know if you can turn your camera on or not, but you certainly can bring your voice. What questions or concerns or statement would you like to make, Omar?
Yeah, I'm driving right now, so I'm not able to turn my camera on.
Okay.
But yeah, I can definitely join on the conversation. Antonio, I loved what you said about like the students, about this generation. That's something that we've always said at our protests, is that this is the wrong generation to mess with right now. What we've had and what we created, like when we first had the idea of going out there and being at the encampment, was that we were scared people were not going to come out. We were scared that we were not going to have the community support because it's finals, because it's cold, because a lot of factors. And then like we did it, and Minnesota showed out for us, like over and over and over again. That's one thing that kept us together, that kept us like made us stand our ground. The one thing that really fueled it, the one like we said this at the university, is that the more you suppress the students, the more students are going to come out. It's not this like old thing anymore where like you put fear in their hearts. So if you were to bring cops, if you're like, it was a peaceful encampment and you brought riot police out for us, that really shows like how much you're scared of the student movement. And
Mm.
when that happens, that really like that that fueled more students to come out. That put more media attention on them. So like their retaliation only made it better for us and worse for them. And they talked about all the right channels to go through. Like they used to talk about how we can't do this. Like it's against university policy. But truth be told, like for 7 months straight, we've tried to talk to them. We've tried to get to them. We've had over 30 protests. We've won the campus-wide elections, and they ignored all the right channels that they put for us, and they only listened to one. They only listened to one thing, and it was the encampment. So I feel like those rules had to be bent a little bit in order for our voices to be heard. And even until now, like people were getting desensitized to what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Palestine, because the war, like the war started, and no one thought it was going to go on for this long, really. So people that got used to it. And
Omar,
I'm sorry.
where are you
Yeah.
from? Are you from North Side, South Side? Are you Minnesotan or are you international student?
I'm from Minnesota. I'm from SJP, University of Minnesota. I was one of the organizers for University of Minnesota's encampment.
Okay, great. And how old are you, Omar?
I am 22.
22. Great. Well, I'm so glad you're there, and so
Yes.
glad that you're able to share with us here. And
Mhm.
I enjoy that, or not enjoy, it's not the right word, but I'm pleased that you're speaking out and willing to speak out, and you represent an accurate description of the process that
Mhm.
brave students go through in deciding to lay both potentially their lives, their safety, their health, and their investment, the cost of university training on the line, because they are moved by a will to both know, understand, and demonstrate what justice is, and that demand for justice is important to you. So what do you think is going to happen? What in the conflict drew you personally, even at the beginning? When did you start to say, I, Omar, got to do something? What was it that lit the fire into you?
I mean it's really multiple things. Like I mean, we grew up too. I'm personally from Egypt, so I grew up during the Arab Spring in Egypt. So I saw how revolutions evolve and how they take place, how they spark and how they go down. Um, so like I'm really inspired by revolutions. I'm really inspired by civil rights movements. I think this generation is very um, I would say woke in the sense of like the same thing has been happening for decades, but now people have a camera,
Mm-hmm.
really. So I remember like during 2020 Black Lives Matter protests, someone said like the US got more racist, and then the other person told them like no, there's you can just see it more because of social media. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the fact that our generation, like it's so easy for information to travel, we feel obligated to something about it. Like this generation is like inherently rebellious within itself. So that's one thing. The other thing, as a student, I feel like if I'm at an institution that is funding this genocide or is complicit in this genocide or is hosting companies that are making the weapons that are like causing this genocide to happen, then I have something to do about it. A lot of the people said like, what can you do as a student here when it's something that's happening overseas? But then when you saw kids in Gaza holding up signs saying, thank you to University of Minnesota students for standing up for Gaza, that really puts like, it puts like, you know why you're here, you know your purpose. They can hear you, like they can hear us, they can see us, and they know that we're here with them.
Mm-hmm.
Just us speaking out makes them resilient and makes them hold their ground. We remind them that the world did not forget about them. So I feel like as a student and as a human, there is two totally two different factors, but they both go back into the me feeling like I have an obligation of doing something.
Mm-hmm. And so it seems to me that one of the logical extensions of activism of this nature, I call it consciousness development in individuals and therefore in communities of people who see power and sharing and connectivity differently. One of the objectives is a reordering or reshaping of the contract between the parties of global governance. Am I going too far? Are you thinking about what it takes to change the world, or is it simply a question of protesting this specific malady? And it's not simple by any means. It's horrific. But what's the scope from your point of view and from your generation's point of view?
I think the scope is that like I think my generation is going into this phase where now we're starting to be the ones in power, and we're starting to be the ones that have control. And to the older generations that are in control right now, or to like the norm, or to like the older system that has been there for decades, it's hard for that transition to happen. So I feel like it's a transition of perspective of a lot of things really that go into it. And what's making it harder is not the fact that like the younger generation is different. It's the fact that the older generation cannot change and is not accepting that change.
We have to leave it there. I'm going to invite you back, though. This is a great conversation, and I want to applaud you and thank you for the work that you're doing and the voice you're bringing to that work. And our doors are open. We'd love to have you back often and regularly to give us updates on what's happening both at the University of Minnesota here in Twin Cities, but in the student community nationwide and worldwide as well. Antonio, thank you. WD, thank you. We got to leave. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.